Good afternoon, everybody. This is Brandon Peterson. I'm an account manager with ApplicantStack by SwipeClock, and you are listening to our onboarding webinar. We're also joined by two other account managers, Ellen and Carol, and Lauren DeSimon with our marketing team is also on the call. So we're going to go ahead and give it a couple minutes, as is customary, to let some of the late folks enter. And so we'll probably be starting in about 2 more minutes. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you all for joining us. We're thrilled to share this time with you today. And today we're going to be talking about Onboard, which is a piece of ApplicantStack that integrates seamlessly with Recruit. So first of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of a layout of Onboard. If you're familiar with Recruit, this will be very familiar to you. And then we're going to talk about how onboarding, how your experience with onboarding will differ depending on if you're a new hire and what that experience looks like, what the experience would be for the hiring manager, and then how admins can configure and adapt the process and the setup to streamline your processes and ensure compliance. All right, so just like in Recruit, we're faced with a dashboard. These columns give us a brief overview of where our hires are sitting in our workflow. My workflow here shows the new paperwork orientation and training stages. And so if it's my company, I can look at this and see how much my hiring managers are moving people along the way, so I can maintain accountability. All right, so next I'm going to go to the Hires tab. So the Hires dashboard is going to show us all of our active hires, and it's going to give a bit of a progress bar indicating how much of their paperwork they've completed. There's also some additional information, what stage they're in, who their hiring manager is, and et cetera. The next piece here is the library. We'll talk about that when we talk about the process for admins. And we also have reports and tasks. We're going to skip over those today. All right, so once a candidate has been moved from Recruit to Onboard, they enter into the first stage that we set up. So in my setup, it's the new stage. And so if I go to Michael Turner here, who's in the new stage, we'll see at a glance his information. And then up here is our action buttons. So the next natural stage is going to be the paperwork stage. Now, there are other stages I can move him to. If I click on this drop down, we can see the additional stages, and all of these are configurable. But the most common one, we hope, is that this candidate moves in to the paperwork stage. So if I click this, then we're going to see a pop-up, and we're faced with an email, a text, and then also a checklist. So this pop-up is telling me that as I move Michael from the new stage into the paperwork stage, ApplicantStack is configured to send out an email, and it's configured to send immediately, to also send a text and also to attach a certain checklist to Michael's file. And that checklist will be something that he will need to complete. And there may be also items in there that the hiring manager needs to complete. So then we would just confirm that stage change. Okay, so I'm going to now jump over to what this process looks like for a new hire. So I have here Taylor Swift, who we're hiring, and she has been moved into the paperwork stage already, just like we saw Michael being moved into the paperwork stage. And when that happens, that email that gets triggered is the welcome email. It explains here how to log in to the onboarding portal. So there's the URL, and then it references the candidate's email address, and that's going to be their username. And then it also assigns a temporary password. So if I, Taylor Swift, click on this link, first it's going to ask me to sign in with my temporary password, and then I'll be asked to create a new password. But for demonstration purposes, I've already done that for us, so we don't have to watch that. So now that I've set my password, I go ahead and log in. So now we're seeing the new hire portal, and my contact information as the new hire shows up first. Got my manager's information, and this can create a bit of a check and a balance so that the information I've previously supplied, I can ensure that it's correct. If I see an error, I can edit it and change it. I can also change my password. Okay. All right, so this next section talks a little bit about the job that I've applied for and I've been offered, and then we'll see the tasks down here. So I'm going to click on the W-4 Employees Withholding Certificate. Now I want to point out one of my favorite pieces of ApplicantStack Onboard, and that is the autofill feature. So you'll notice here that these fields, just once I opened up this form, they were already populated with my name, my address, and there's a lot of other fields we can create as well. Any job field or candidate field can be used to autofill. So in my demo account, I don't have social security number as a candidate field, but I could make one for that, and then I could pre-populate this field with the candidate's social security number. Obviously, there's going to be many other things that these forms are asking that wouldn't be appropriate to pre-fill, things that are unique to the form. For example, in this W-4, we have filing status, and this is the only place where we're going to be marking that information, so there's no need to use an autofill. All right, so once I complete that and make sure that the information is correct, I can sign it. And then there's a date picker, so I'll go ahead and do that, and you'll notice that today's date is highlighted by default. Okay, so now if I go down here, all right, backing up. All right, so now I'm going to submit. I'm going to agree to the electronic signature, and I'll just submit it. Oops. So now you can see that if a field is not filled out correctly, then we are not able to submit. So there's a check and a balance there. So I'm just going to complete those and try that again. So now that I've completed the W-4, I'm prompted to do the next task, and I would just continue through these stages to do all of those tasks. All right, so tasks can be assigned to both the hire and the user, which would essentially be the hiring manager. So let's shift a little bit from what the candidate's experience is like to what the hiring manager's experience would be like. So on this dashboard for, let's go to Taylor. We'll see here that Taylor has, the W-4 has been completed, and it timestamps that. I can view the form. I can print it from here. If you have data retention policies that require you to print things and have a physical copy, that feature is available. All right, so here are the remaining tasks that have been assigned to Taylor that have not been completed by her yet. So those are going to remain here until she enters the onboarding portal and completes those. Now, there are a few things here that have been assigned to the user. Again, the user is the hiring manager. And so a form can be assigned to both the new hire and the hiring manager. A good example of that is the I-9. I don't have that example in here, but the I-9 requires a signature by the employee. They need to put their information in there, and then the employer needs to verify their documents and sign it. And so each form can be assigned to both the hire and the employer or the hiring manager. And so when those tasks are completed by the employee, they then become a user task and would show in this section. So let's look at the other pieces of this, this hire record. So if I'm the hiring manager, we'll see completed questionnaires, completed forms, assigned supporting documents. We'll talk about what these are when we look at the library and the setup and configuration. And there's an audit trail of different actions that have been completed. Here are the emails that have been sent to the candidate. Any notes, these are internal only. So if I, as the hiring manager, need to put in notes about the candidate, I would put that here. And then there's a history, the changes that have happened to the candidate record, the stages they've been on, when tasks have been assigned, what checklists have been assigned, and so forth. Okay, so I showed you earlier how when I moved the candidate, Michael, from new into paperwork, how it automatically sent him an email and also assigned him a checklist. Well, we can also do that manually. So let's say, in this example, let's say Taylor accidentally put in something incorrectly on her W-4. So if I need her to complete that again, I can just add form, select the form, and I'll ask it to send a notification. I can ask it to set a cadence for reminders. And then once I do that and submit it, then a new form will be sent to her. So even though one's been completed, this is now creating a new instance of that form, and they would have to complete that. I can also manually add a whole checklist. I only have one checklist in my demo account here. And I can also add tasks. I can text the hire manually. I can email the hire manually. Okay, so I'm sure you have a lot of questions now. How does all this come together? How does it all work? So the magic of ApplicantStack happens inside the workflow configuration. So I'm going to navigate to the head and shoulder icon to setup, and then to configure the hire workflow. Now we can have multiple workflows. So there may be a different process for different employees, different job types, and different locations. And so you may have multiple workflows. Again, in my demo, I only have the one. And so if I edit this workflow, we'll see the new stage. Again, this is kind of a dead stage. There's nothing happening here. It's just a holding stage when they come over from Recruit. But once the hiring manager goes in and sees them on that dashboard, and they click that green button, Begin Paperwork, then they're moved into the paperwork stage. And you'll see here It says send the following message to the hire. Welcome to the hiring process. And there's a view email and a view text. Okay, I can hover over these and see the content of that email, and I can view the content of that text. And we will get to how we configure these too. And then also we see assign the following checklist to new hire forms. Now, if I drill into this edit workflow stage, now we're getting really granular and very in the weeds about customization. So you'll see here, again, the message template that's assigned when they enter the paperwork stage is welcome to the hiring process, and that's the email where they're given that automatically generated password and the link to the hiring portal. Triggering stage means we are defining what stage, we're defining a condition based on what stage they're coming from. So I have set any stage, which means if they're coming from any stage into the paperwork stage, it will send this message. But I can also set it so it'll send a different message if they come from one particular stage. Okay. And then there's the checklist that I've assigned. Again, I can add multiple checklists. An example of a reason you might do that could be that you have a set package of in your checklist that would be uniform across every employee. And then you might have some field employees that have certain checklists that would only apply to them. And you might have some office staff that might have a separate checklist that would apply to them. And so you can organize it in that manner. All right, next we have user settings, so we can set who the owner of this stage is and who gets notified when a candidate moves into that stage. Lastly, we have field settings. These are just additional fields that we might want the hiring manager to fill out when they move into that stage. So for example, I mentioned earlier, social security number. If we created a social security number field, then we could add it here so that when that candidate is moved from the new stage into the paperwork stage, they're prompted to enter their social security number so that it then auto-populates in all the forms that are about to be assigned to them. Okay, and then the next stage I have here is orientation. So I have nothing in here right now. Let me show you how I would add something. So I would just go to edit workflow stage and go to my message templates. And I want to send them the paperwork complete email and text. And there's no checklists I need to add. I don't want any notifications necessarily, and I submit that. And now you'll see that email and text has been assigned whenever they move from the paperwork stage into the orientation stage. All right, so I promised you earlier that I would talk about the library and how to set that up. So we'd be now moving into what it's like for an admin to be setting the configuration and overseeing this whole process. So I'm going to navigate to the library. And we'll see here that we have 6 different types of library templates. We have forms, which are what most of us think about when we do online paperwork, the DocuSign type PDFs. Those are forms. We have questionnaires. Questionnaires is kind of a shortcut to a form. So instead of having to format a form, we can just ask the questions. And some of the examples in here, one of the examples, is uniform sizing worksheet. We don't need a prettied up form to get their shirt size. We can just ask that information, and it just makes it a lot simpler and easier. Another example might be emergency contact information. There's nothing here that they need to sign. We just need to know about it. Messages. Messages are what I showed you earlier in the workflow. These are going to go out either as emails or texts. So let's look at this paperwork complete message. I'm going to go in here and edit it. All right, so there's a lot going on here. So obviously we want to give it a name, and then we assign whether it's coming from the user, which would be the hiring manager, or the system, which would just be, it would be a no reply type email. The candidate would not be able to reply to it, But if we make it a user, then they can respond to the email and communicate that way. I can add attachments. So if I wanted to attach a copy of the benefits guide, just for information purposes, I could attach it here. Subject and then the delay. So this is where we set a delay of when this is going to go out. So for this, I want it to go immediately, but we could also set something to go out in 3 days or in 4 days. There's all kinds of options listed here. Now you may be wondering what these words that are underlined in red are. That's my auto spell check picking that up. But what's going on here? These are called merge codes. If you're not familiar with merge codes are dynamic fields that help us customize templates based on whoever's receiving it. And so here we want to address the candidate by their name, and so we're using the hire first name merge code. To access those merge codes, we can click on the little triangle down here at the bottom of the text field, and we'll see the options that are available to us. So many of them are hire fields. Again, if we create a new hire field, there would create a new merge code as well, so that we would have access to that. User fields, these would be things associated with the user, the hiring manager. Account fields, these are more tied to the business. And then general fields, there's some date. Well, all of these look like date fields here too. All right, so in my template here, I address the candidate. Congratulations on your new position as whatever the position is at our company. And we're thrilled to have you join our team and can't wait to see what you can accomplish. Grateful always, and then the name of the user. So that can really help enhance the experience for the candidate by personalizing it, and it really just shows a good front of the company to this new candidate. Now, because this account has premium texting enabled, we also have the option to send a text message. And in today's day and age, the open rates for text messages are so much higher than email, and there's a lot of obstacles that we don't face with text message that we face with email. For example, with email, we often run into the problem of spam filters, with people not being able to remember which email account they've provided, with people being unable to remember their password. So those are some of the main obstacles we see with email, but if we send it as a text, we avoid a lot of those. And so here, I'm essentially saying the same thing I did in the email, just in a little bit more casual language. Thanks for completing the new hire paperwork, candidate, and we're thrilled to have you start. We'll be in touch about your first day. So when I complete these messages, then I can later go into the workflow and add them at certain points of the workflow. All right, tasks. Tasks can also be assigned in the workflow or sent manually. Tasks help us keep organized internally, and we can also assign the tasks to the candidate. So the task might be having to go and get fingerprinted or something like that, or the internal task might be to order a uniform or order their name badge, and that just helps us stay organized. And then the checklist is where we bundle these together so that we can assign them to the hire. So the only checklist I have in my account here is the new hire forms. If I click on the name, I'll see what is in the checklist. Okay, I have the 9 items here, a few forms of tasks. Now, if I want to edit this, I can edit it here. And it's just a drag and drop feature. So the column on the left here is what is available to me in the library, and the column on the right is what I have actually assigned to the checklist. And so once I do that, I can reorder things if I want them to show in a different order. I can remove things by dragging them away. I can add things by dragging them in. Okay. And then lastly, we have supporting documents. documents. These are just larger. Oh my gosh.
Brandon, you okay there? I think we're having some technical difficulties. Carol and Lauren, can you hear me? This is Ellen.
Ellen, I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Fortunately, Brandon was wrapping up. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back in. And I think I just got noticed that his battery died. So fortunately, Brandon was finishing up the onboarding demo, and just to complete where he was talking about supporting documents. Is that you, Brandon? No, he was talking about supporting documents and onboarding. And supporting documents are informational documents only. A new hire doesn't need to sign them. No real action needs to take place in regard to filling out any forms. No questions are being asked. They're informational. So it could be a holiday pay schedule. It could be a holiday pay schedule. It could be a pay schedule. It could be a holiday schedule. You could even include a link to your CEO or head of organization welcoming your new hires as a supporting document. So you do have the ability to add those type of documents as default to every hire, or you can pick and choose which hires would need to access or view supporting documents. So fortunately, I think Brandon was just finishing up. So that pretty much finishes up the demo portion of this webinar. We do have a reports function in ApplicantStack onboarding as well. And any field that is identified in ApplicantStack onboarding, obviously fields like employee name, hire date, maybe that type of information, you would want to run a report on. You have the ability to create those reports, save them, and send them off to share that information with those that might be interested in it. You can export report data into a CSV formatted file, and again, share it with others that might be interested in that data. Jumping in where Brandon left off, Carol, can you think of anything else to add?
I think that pretty much covers it. He was pretty close to wrapping up.
Right,
So
exactly.
question.
All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and open it up for questions? And again, the questions can be anything ApplicantStack. Obviously, this was an onboarding webinar, so we welcome those questions as well. But Carol and I will field the questions, and if Brandon can pop back on, he'll do so as well.
Can you all hear me now?
Oh, we sure can.
Well, I just had a good nap.
Okay, good, good.
No.
I jumped in for you. I think you were wrapping up, Brandon, right? Going through.
I was just about done, and I got about a 1 minute or 30-second warning that my battery was about to die, and I apologize for that.
All right. I think
Thanks
we're
for stepping
good.
in.
Yeah, of course. And was there anything else you wanted to share, Brandon?
No, the supporting documents was where I was going to end it.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, you are welcome. Well, let's open it up to questions. And some folks have already input some questions. And for those of you who have questions, feel free to go ahead and input them in the chat box. And let's see what we've got, Brandon, okay? The first question is paperwork available for Canadian regulatory landscape? I actually snuck a peek at my demo account because I saw that question come through, and I don't see any Canadian paperwork that we provide. But what I would suggest doing is submitting a ticket and asking our tech support team if they have ever created any Canadian paperwork. And you can create a ticket by clicking on the white question mark in the upper right-hand corner of your ApplicantStack screen, and then ask a question from that point. All right, next question is, will the system recognize if there is an error on Social Security, SSI, Social Security information?
I can address that.
Okay, if the populated feature is being used.
Yeah, so what we do when ApplicantStack has a little bit of logic built into the fields. And so if I go to this I-9 form, for example, and I go to the Social Security number right here, then there is logic built into here that can say, hey, this is a Social Security number. So I can edit it, and we have validation. And if I click SSN, we do have Canadian SIN as well, and a few other options here to validate that the data that's input follows the pattern that is in line with that requested data. So a phone number obviously is going to have a certain number of digits. A regular number is not going to allow any letters, etc. And that would not allow the candidate to proceed if there was an error in the Social Security number. It does not verify it in any database. It's just making sure that it has 9 numbers in it.
Great, thanks, Brandon. The next question is, I don't see the Hire tab in ApplicantStack. Is it a different version for US use only?
I wonder there if they're not using looking in Recruit.
Maybe looking in Recruit. So you would have to be in onboarding, Avi, to see the Hire tab. Not sure if you're there or not, or if your account has onboarding. But in ApplicantStack Recruit, you would see the Candidates tab. In ApplicantStack Onboarding, you would see the Hire tab. So if you've got additional questions, please go ahead and input them, and we'll try to answer them as we proceed.
Ellen, are you seeing my screen?
I sure am.
Okay.
All right, next question is there a way to encrypt an applicant's Social Security number? And yes, there's absolutely a way to encrypt that in onboarding. And Brandon, if you want to go, you have an example, or do you want to go to setup and add or create a hire field? So when you create a hire field, if you haven't already, for personal information such as Social Security number, you can follow Brandon, he's doing it now, and click on hire fields. And as you scroll through the template, if you create a hire field in onboarding, you'll see one of the fields is do you want data encrypted? Yeah, you're gonna create one, Brandon?
Yeah, it's coming up here.
Okay. And so if you scroll down, you see the field name encrypted. It's down a bit. If you toggle that to yes, then the data in that field will be encrypted. All righty. Next question is, will creating a new form like the W-4 automatically take the place of the incorrect one? Do we need to delete the wrong one? There is a check and balance system within ApplicantStack onboarding. And if an individual, a new hire, has completed a prior year's W-4, then the system won't allow you to delete that form because it's been filled out. So what you need to do with an outdated form is archive the form. And if you have checklists, it will come out of your checklist, and you will need to go into those checklists and add the current W-4. So again, archive the old one, edit your checklists, and add the new one. And the next question is, will the supporting documents be accessible to candidate after they are deactivated from AppStack? I'm on a roll here, so I'm gonna keep on going, Brandon. I hope that's okay with you.
Yeah, I can take it too if you want.
Yeah, go on, it's yours.
So that's an excellent question. So the applicant or the new hire will have access to the onboarding portal as long as they're in an active stage. And we can configure the stages, whether they're active or not, in the workflow. So if I go to setup, configure, and look at the hire workflow stages, you'll see here all of these first 4 stages are active, and then the last 2 are inactive. And so once they're moved into either complete or terminated, they'd no longer be able to access those documents. But we would still be able to access the documents internally. Great question.
Thanks, Brandon. And the next one is, how do you change the default onboarding manager? You want to,
Okay.
yep. Brandon's going to the
So
hire. Yep.
we'll go to Taylor here, and we can just edit their record. And at the bottom of the record of this, we can assign somebody else to be their hiring manager. And you'll also see here a few other options. I think it might have been asked earlier about password resets, but if you send the email trigger notification again, it'll reset the password for them. Okay,
All right.
great question.
Yeah, good questions. You're absolutely right, Brandon. I have a question regarding a form we want to add. And you can absolutely add your own forms unique to your organization. We do have the state and federal forms ready for your use, federal forms, and a few other commonly used forms as well. The form that you want to add does need to be in PDF format. And then, Brandon, you want to walk through the steps just to add an organizations form to the library?
Yeah, sure. I think Trina also has, I think she clarifies the question later. Is there a way to add a confirmation document after an application is reviewed?
Oh, I haven't
After an
gotten
application is
it.
reviewed,
Okay.
supporting documents. Yeah, so the process would be, let me just see if I have a file here I can use as an example. So I'll go to the library, and to add a document, we would just add a form here, and then we would choose from our file picker what that form is. Okay, I'm not going to take the time to upload right now, but let's look at like a handbook acknowledgement form. I think that addresses directly, Trina, your question. So a handbook might not be the best option to put in a form as a form template because they're often long. And so here we're putting in an acknowledgement form saying, yes, I've received this and I've read it. And so there's a date picker on this, and then we scroll down, and then they sign and date it. So this would be the document confirming that they've reviewed that supporting document. Okay, it looks like we nailed her question. Good.
Okay. You're
Great question, Trina. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next question is, will ATS create the login password for each applicant and send to them? So the way I'm interpreting this, Brandon, is in that welcome email. You're ahead of me again. And what you can see there is the URL that the new hire will click, and then the username of the new hire, which is always the email address. ApplicantStack onboarding will assign a temporary password, and the new hire can then modify or change that password if they'd like. So the answer to your question, Bonnie, is yes. ApplicantStack onboarding will create login and password information for your new hires.
And I will add too, I know that this wasn't her question, but if they do forget their password after they set their own, so the temporary password's assigned to them, they log in with it, and then they're asked to make their own password. But if they forget that, they can just come back here and just say that they forgot their password, and they're prompted to put in their email address. So that can be a helpful tool for you so you don't have to do it for them. Okay.
Good point, Brandon. All right, the next question is, when a form is not filled out correctly, do they fill out the entire form again? They can, or an ApplicantStack admin has the ability to edit forms. Let's take a peek at Taylor Swift's hire record. So I don't know, and I'm kind of wavering here a little bit. I don't know that as an admin or an ApplicantStack user, you would want to modify a form that's already been completed by a new hire. I think I would defer to you and what you feel comfortable with, and if there's any guidelines on this in your state. But yes, what you can do is add a form to their portal and ask them to complete it again.
Right. On the portal, there
Yeah.
is also an option. So let's say a form has two components. One is the new hire, and then the second being the employer. As long as you're not skipping a step. So if the hire has filled out their information and they need to go back and change something, they should be able to go back in and edit it. But if the employer completes that second portion, then it's too late to go back and make any modifications. So Brandon, if you want to go to the new hire portal and maybe show where that edit functionality is. If you want to do it through ApplicantStack, just pick a hire and go to the new hire portal for that hire. We should be able to show that. Yep, so if you scroll down, you see where it says complete, that means it's too late. But there is an edit form. So the hire, to my understanding, if they click edit form, they should be able to go back in and edit information. But once it just says complete, it's too late.
And in that case, Carol, I would just say that at that point, you can just resend the form and have them fill it out again, this time the correct way. And there are reasons to do it that way, because then if there's ever any kind of audit of any kind, you can at least show that they filled out the form on time, albeit incorrectly. So you can at least show that you did that step and you did it on time, and then you just add the new corrected form after it, so you have both records.
Yep, sounds good. It takes a team, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The next question is, how can you hide the supporting documents from certain hires and not from others? So you can make supporting documents when you upload them into ApplicantStack onboarding. You have the option to have those supporting documents default to all hires. If you choose not to check that box, then you can pick and choose what supporting documents you want for each type of hire. So I think we're good there with that question. Next question. Do you have plans to automate assigning supporting documents to workflows just like paperwork tasks? Emily, that's a great question. That's been on our wish list. I don't know where that functionality is on our roadmap. We've heard your request. It's valid. I understand why you're asking. And I don't have an answer for you, but we've heard your request before. So we're always looking at increasing the functionality of ApplicantStack, and we will certainly put in a case for that. Next question. Does ApplicantStack have the ability to do offers through the system and track them? So yes, we absolutely have the ability to create offer letters. It is out of our Recruit software as opposed to onboarding. And Brandon's flipping back to Recruit. And offer letters can be created through what we call our documents functionality that you can see on the blue menu on the left. And basically documents give you the ability to create a document with merge code information. So they're highly tailored documents because obviously you want an offer letter to be very tailored to your new hire. So you want to use the candidate name, as you can see, Brandon's pulling in a merge code there. Maybe you want to bring in a merge code and identify the job for which will be hiring, how much PTO, what their start date is, what their start salary is. You have the ability to do all of that. And once you create that template in the library and you go to, I should say, once you create that document in the library, you can go to the candidate record. You can then send the document of choice to the candidate, and all of this is audited. The candidate can sign and date the document and send it back. And all of that information is captured within the candidate record. And okay, so the next question is there a way to add a confirmation document after an applicant has reviewed supporting documents? So the best way to do that, again, since supporting documents are informational, is to create a really quick form, much like the form that you saw Brandon bring up earlier about, maybe a handbook acknowledgement. You could create an acknowledgement form saying, and assign it to the new hire, and have the new hire sign and date it, saying, yes, I have reviewed all supporting documents included in my onboarding portal. So it could just be a really quick document with a signature and date field and some text. Next question, and this is from an individual who has left, and it's about how he doesn't have the tab for hires. So we'll follow up with him. Next question is, do you advise that we keep hired candidates in an active stage as long as they're employed by our organization? I'm gonna share with you my knee-jerk reaction, and then Carol and Brandon, if you could pop in, that would be great too. As long as you have, and I'm going to use the term hires, in an active stage, they have access to their onboarding information. My knee-jerk reaction is I would move hires who have completed all onboarding paperwork to an inactive stage so they could not access any of their onboarding information. Carol and Brandon, what do you have to say about that?
I would agree. I would move them to an inactive stage as they're employed. You can always move them back into an active stage. So if there's ever a occasion where they need to fill out another form, I even see some accounts that use onboarding to process annual reviews or process annual trainings, then they could just be bumped back into an active stage. And then when that's complete, they are put back inactive again so that they're not able to access those documents or change anything.
Exactly. Yep. Thanks for expanding upon that, Brandon.
Yeah.
All right. Next question is, my hire workflow stage is missing the termination stage. How do I add that? So that is configuring your onboarding account, and you would do so by clicking on the head and shoulders in the upper right-hand corner. This is from Pamela. Configure. And then what you want to do is add the stage first. So Brandon is clicking on hire workflow stages. And you can create the stage by clicking create stage from the gray menu in the upper right-hand corner. Add termination. And just as best practices, since we were just on this topic, yeah, and Brandon just did it. It's now an inactive stage. You would never want a termination stage, or most likely never want a termination stage to be active, because then again, those prior hires could access it. So he's now included the stage, terminated. And if you go to your home tab, Brandon.
Oh, okay.
Wait, the question panel is covering it. Did it come up on your workflow?
No, I just created the stage. It's not added to the workflow yet.
Oh, sorry, I jumped ahead. So the stage needs to be added, and then the stage needs to be added to the workflow. And then you'll have that stage, you can move terminated employees into that stage.
Yeah, we'll see here, there's a little orange badge showing that there's a stage that hasn't been utilized yet. And so I can just add it like this. And then we're faced with all the options of that stage that we can customize.
All right. Oh, we are getting some thank yous. Apparently we answered questions appropriately, Carol and Brandon.
That's always good to see.
I know. Next question though, they're still coming in. This is excellent. Where would you store a handbook to send out to candidates? So Brandon had addressed that, Teresa, a little earlier, but let's discuss it some more. If your employee handbook has a lot to it, the best place or the best thing to do is to upload that as a supporting document. And Brandon's navigating to supporting documents and onboarding. And then if you want your new hires to acknowledge that they have reviewed and read the handbook, again, create a simple form saying, yes, I have, and assign it to your new hire, saying, yes, I've created or I've reviewed the handbook, have them sign and date it. Handbooks are typically very, very long. And again, the best way to do that is to create them as a supporting document with an acknowledgement form. Wow, we're getting more thank yous. Thank you. We would love this feature to help automate the process a bit more between different hires. And that's from Emily. And Brandon, the way I'm interpreting that is multiple onboard workflows, which Emily, you can absolutely do. Just like in ApplicantStack Recruit, you can have multiple recruit workflows based on type of candidate. In onboarding, you can have multiple onboarding workflows as well. It is through the configuration function. And if you've got specific questions surrounding that, please go ahead and support or submit a technical support ticket. Next question. Is there a way to bulk upload documents to AccessCare? And this is from Trina. And I don't know how to interpret this question. Brandon or Carol, do you?
No, I don't know exactly what documents they're referencing there. I don't, but I think AccessCare does have an integration built.
Right.
Right. I believe it only sends very basic information over, though. That may be an AccessCare question. You could export forms out of our system, but as far as way to upload them to that might be a question for AccessCare.
Well, there is an article about this in our support center. So I'm going to go ahead and send this to Trina and send it to so everybody can see it.
All right. And Trina, feel free to submit a ticket on that. But as Carol said, that could be an AccessCare question as well. And this is a question, but it's from an individual who has left, but let me go ahead and read it. What if we don't have an inactive stage? And Brandon, I think you've already shown how to create a stage and either make a stage active or inactive. So I think we're good there.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a thank you. Next question. I have heard mixed responses about whether an I-9 can be filled out virtually or if it must be filled out using paper pen. Have you confirmed anything about this in order to feature this form? I'm going to defer to you, Emerson, to ask your legal group on that, or if you've got an HR consulting group I too have heard mixed responses. So I don't have the knowledge to answer your question, but again, your legal or your HR consultants should. Brandon or Carol, do you have anything to add?
I can take a stab at it. So the form definitely can be filled out digitally, but what comes up with I-9s is whether the documents are inspected, the physical documents are inspected in person, or if they're just looking at images. And for I-9s, they are supposed to be inspected in person. You're supposed to see the original document, and that's what the employer is signing on the I-9 when they sign it, that they've verified that the documents appear to be authentic.
Yeah. If you've got additional questions about that, Emerson, please go ahead and submit them. And Carol, I think I heard you chiming in.
Sorry, so I have also heard of there's third-party services where you could send a new hire out to go have that witnessed as they sign it. But again, I would really be more comfortable deferring to your HR or legal team on the best way to handle that.
Yep. Agreed. Let's see. The next question is, this is clarification from Trina. I'm asking, is there a way to bulk export rather than one document at a time? Okay. And is this a bulk export from onboarding? If so, yes, you can. And Brandon is going to bring up a hire. And it would be under completed forms. And you can see Brandon's clicking on view all forms. But what that will bring up is the ability for you to save those forms elsewhere and or print them out.
Yeah, and in my example, I only have one form here, but I believe that if you do view all forms, it's just one PDF of all the forms strung together, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Can we get a recording of this webinar? It is very useful information. Well, thank you, Rochelle. And I do think Lauren is recording this and we'll send it out to all participants when we are done. And we had another question about whether or not this is being recorded. Excellent. Oh, okay. All righty. Got a perfect from Trina. So I think we've answered all of Trina's questions. I do want to note, Brandon, if you could click on the white question mark in the upper right-hand corner to access our help center. This webinar is being recorded, but we do have a lot of other tools in our help center that might be of interest as well. There is an onboarding webinar that was just put in the help center. It was recorded from an onboarding webinar that took place in December. So please don't forget about the help center because there are loads of videos and articles that can really assist in navigating both ApplicantStack Recruit and onboarding. All right. Thank you for your time. Have a great day. Gosh, these are some really great messages. Perfect. Thank you. Very helpful. Thank you. Okay. Brandon, I think we are closing down here. Wow, and it's at the top of the hour. What timing? I don't. And that was even planned that way. Coming in. So Brandon, back to you.
Yeah, thank you all again for attending. I know that we've already lost a few people, but appreciate your time and your interest in onboarding. We hope it's been very helpful. Like many people mentioned, a recording is available. For those of you who are already using onboarding, we hope you learned something new. And for those of you not using it yet, if you're interested, go ahead and contact your account manager and we can get you set up and do additional trainings if necessary. So we hope you all have a wonderful afternoon and evening, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.